Once again, we are one day late to this, but it's fine. Welcome to my college football 2025 Week 13 playoff predictions. Week 12 was very, very chaotic, so we're gonna have lots of changes in the standings going forward. Um, Obviously, the CFP rankings just came out yesterday. They're disrespecting the Group of Five teams as always, but let's just go on to my ranking format. As you all know, I will be choosing 10 teams from 10 region based conferences to go to the playoffs, as well as two at large picks. If one of them isn't a Group of Five pick, then one of them is going to be a Group of Five pick. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Starting out with the ACC region, as per usual, James Madison still in the lead, but that Virginia is really trying to make a fight back. Like, James Madison passed Virginia after they got their second loss, but at this point, Virginia's strength of schedule is what's carrying them right now. Virginia at this point is right behind James Madison, so if enough things go their way, Virginia could be taking the spot once again. But for now, James Madison holds the lead. Ace Carolina stays confidently at third. Looking at the standings, Duke fell down quite a bit, now being below both Wake Forest and Clemson. So now just Duke is sitting in the middle of the conference. The bowl line still at Coastal Carolina. I do notice that I moved NC State down below the bowl line because I'm significantly less confident in their consistency. Obviously, South Carolina is bowl ineligible. North Carolina and Liberty not too far behind, and obviously Charlotte has been for a while. Nearly every team above the bowl line is already bowl eligible, with the exception of Clemson and Duke. Clemson has their FCS opponent this week, so I think they'll be fine. And Duke has also got some pretty... Duke, I believe, will go 6-6. So I think I had Duke predicted to go 8-4 for a little bit, and then it was 7-5. Now I think they'll go 6-6, and then they'll be able to get a bowl. But at this point, they're out of real life ACC contention, whereas Virginia still has a chance. Virginia again might pass James Madison if they end up getting that last win, and we'll see what goes on as the next couple of weeks pass. Moving on to the American region. Once again, these rankings are the same, but Pittsburgh and Navy are about as close in competition as James Madison and Virginia are. Navy got a surprising win against USF, so now they're actually starting. An argument for them is starting to return. Like, I counted them out once they started losing and they were no longer undefeated. But I don't know. Pittsburgh definitely has a much tougher schedule ahead of them. For now, I have them potentially winning the ACC. But if they can't beat Georgia Tech, then they're not going to be able to do that. Obviously, we still got UConn here at 3. Taking a look at the rest of the rankings, the bowl line is once again just these top 3. Rutgers, I dropped below Penn State once again. I'm less confident that Rutgers is going to be able to beat Penn State, so they might go 5-7. Army sitting strong at 5 wins. I think it'll be hard for them to beat Navy, but there is still a chance that they'll get that 6th win. For now, I'm kind of doubting, though. Same with Temple, Buffalo, and Delaware. I think it's hard for me to foresee them getting a 6th win, even though Delaware can't go to a bowl anyways because they're a first-year FBS opponent. Boston College almost got the jump on Georgia Tech. They're so close. That would have been very funny and very chaotic, but did not happen. Boston College is now at 1-10. UMass, the only winless team in the entire country, and they're just really, really bad. And honestly, like I've said every week, this conference is for sure the weakest. Pittsburgh would be the 12 seed in my ideal play. If the playoffs were to start today, Pittsburgh would be my 12 seed. But I don't think Pittsburgh's only real way into the actual playoffs is if they win the ACC. And right now, I'm thinking they will, but they take one more loss and it's going to be over for them. And then I'll be back on Team Navy most likely. Moving on to the Big 12 region. Huge win for Oklahoma. So Oklahoma now passes Texas. And A&M somehow beats South Carolina despite being down 30-3 at the half. One of the biggest, I think it is the biggest SEC comeback since, I want to say, 20 years. So A&M still undefeated, and Oklahoma with a huge win against Alabama. And so now looking at the rankings, obviously everyone above the bowl line and below line is still the same. It hasn't changed in weeks. But now I think that Oklahoma now snipes Alabama's playoff spot. So spoilers for later, but I do think that Oklahoma is now a playoff team once again, and then A&M still being at the top of the conference and undefeated will likely win the real life SEC. Texas, I think, is still technically has a chance, but I think the likelihood of them getting at least one more loss is quite high. I think it'll really come down to the A&M and Texas game. So we'll have to see. And then also North Texas, I think, is really one of the top Group of 5 contenders, despite the fact what the CFP thinks. I think North Texas is still a very, very legitimate potential outcome. But that's only if enough things go their way. If they keep winning, going 11-1 on the regular season, then they very much have a chance. Houston has been getting ranked by both the CFP and the AP polls. I don't really understand that. To me, they're like team number 26. I think they should be just outside of it. And then obviously we have SMU and TCU, who will still be bowl teams. And I don't think that any of the 5-win teams in this conference are going to get a bowl. So I'm looking at Baylor, UTSA, Rice, and that's just those three. None of those three I think are going to get their 6th win. We already have Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Tulsa, and Sam Houston all already bowl ineligible. But Sam Houston is now 2-8 after going winless for so long. And for now, I still have them ranked below Oklahoma State because Sam Houston is still really, really bad. Surprisingly, Texas State took down Southern Miss. So just wanted to quickly highlight that. So now Texas State ranks above Rice, despite them having a slightly worse record. Now moving on to the Big Ten region, the top 3, Indiana, Missouri, Illinois. And I believe that's what I had last week. I'm sticking to it. I don't know why Illinois isn't ranked on the AP poll. I think they are on the CFP, but they're not ranked on the AP poll. And I think they deserve to be, even though they're, I believe, 7-3 right now. Yep, they're 7-3. Again, this conference still looking very, very strong. Kansas State, I'm still confident, is going to get that 6-6, and I'm not confident that Kansas nor Northwestern is going to get that 6th win. Missouri State, I really wish they could go to a bowl, but they just can't, and it's so sad to see. I do have them ranked above Wisconsin once again, as they should be. And obviously Wisconsin, Purdue, and NIU are bowl ineligible. But then you have like all the teams, like there's so many 6-4 teams, there's so many 7-3 teams. Indiana is definitely running away with this conference though. Like they're very much better than everyone else. Whereas everyone else is still like, it's filled with a bunch of very decent teams, but not a lot that are like incredible, if that makes sense. Moving on to Conference USA, Vanderbilt, despite having a bye, is still in first place. And then there's just chaos below them. Like Louisville, not even in the top 3 anymore. Tennessee stealing that 2nd place spot because both Cincinnati and Louisville lost their games this week. And so now I think they're both basically out of playoff contention at this point, despite them being front runners for a hot minute there. But I still am confident in Vanderbilt number 1. Because Vanderbilt, this quickly went from the conference to the most potential playoff teams. It just fell off so quickly, as Vanderbilt and Western Kentucky are the only teams with 2 losses left. No team with 1 loss, and now several teams with 3 losses. Tennessee, Cincinnati, Louisville, and Memphis. Obviously, Ohio is going to be the bowl line as they have 6 wins already. And Kentucky, I still don't think they're going to get that 6th win. Those last 2 games are really, really tough. So I think that it's basically over for them. Arkansas State and Marshall technically still have a chance, but I'm currently on the doubting side of things. Virginia Tech, bowl ineligible. App State barely hanging on. And then obviously there's the tragedy. That's Middle Tennessee chilling at 1-9 at the bottom of the conference. MAC region, Ohio State 1, Notre Dame 2, Michigan 3. This should not be a surprise to anyone. I had Notre Dame as a playoff team last week. I still have them as a playoff team this week. But big changes in terms of the rankings. Toledo, Western Michigan, both passed Miami University. And then Central Michigan also was able to get that 6th win. So now all of those teams are bowl eligible. And I think Miami University is still going to get that 6th win. It just hasn't happened yet. And then basically everyone below is bowl eligible or 1 game away from being. Kent State and Ball State somehow still holding on, but their 7th win their 7th loss is very, very inevitable. But shout out to Eastern Michigan for climbing up the ranks. They were at the bottom of the MAC region at one point, but now Bowling Green sits at the bottom. And then Kent State, Akron, and Ball State have all been just kind of carouseling around week to week. And then Michigan State just keeps on falling because they're just not a good team. Now moving on to the Mountain West region, top 3 the same: Texas Tech 1, BYU 2, Utah 3. There's not much discussion to be having. What is worth discussing, though, is how close Arizona and ASU are. I do have ASU above Arizona just because of that win over Texas Tech, but the Arizona State and Arizona game is going to be really, really good. At first, it was like, oh, ASU is going to beat Arizona, definitely. But Arizona's been proving a threat. Again, the recent win against Cincinnati, it just proves that. So Arizona State and Arizona is going to be a really, really good game, a really good rivalry game that will be super interesting to watch. And then obviously New Mexico and UNLV have still been performing very, very well. Utah State, I don't think we'll be getting that 6th win. Those last 2 games are a little bit rough. And then obviously we have Colorado, Air Force, Colorado State, New Mexico State, and UTEP all bowl ineligible, whereas Wyoming is 1 game away from being so. This region is very, very top heavy. Like UNLV and above are all very, very strong teams, whereas Utah State and below are all very, very weak teams. And so it'll be interesting to see how, if obviously Texas Tech and BYU are most likely to be the 2 for the Big 12 title, and I think that Texas Tech is going to take it. And unfortunately, I don't think BYU will be ranked high enough to get into the playoffs because of that. Now, moving on to the Pac-12 region, Oregon 1, USC 2, Washington 3. Oregon, USC will be playing each other this week. Obviously, if USC comes out on top, USC is likely to take that number 1 spot from Oregon, and then Washington is still comfortably sitting at that number 3 spot. But if we look back at the rankings, SDSU, San Diego State, passes Boise State again, and because they got another win against Boise State themselves. So now it would make sense if I kept SDSU below Boise State. So now they're there. And then obviously look at all these teams that are already bowl eligible. Cal, Hawaii, Fresno. They're all bowl eligible already. And right now I do have Wazoo not getting that 6th win, but it's very, very possible. And 2 very, very bad losses happened this week. San Jose State lost to Nevada, which is the whole reason why Nevada is no longer at the bottom of the conference, and Oregon State, 2-9, sitting at the bottom with a road loss to Tulsa. It's so sad to see this team just absolutely crumble throughout the entire season. And then obviously we still have bowl ineligible UCLA, Stanford, and then now added San Jose State, and previously there Nevada. Now moving on to the SEC region, with a big loss from Alabama, Ole Miss now takes the number 1 spot. Tulane holding on to that number 3 spot above LSU still. And at this point, I think, like I said earlier, I think Alabama's playoff spot just got sniped by Oklahoma. I think there's a high chance that they'll just get left out, which would be really, really funny. Like, they were leading this conference for so long, but now they have 2 losses on their resume. One to the more understandable Oklahoma, but that Florida State loss looks really, really bad more and more with time. Obviously, LSU is still finally reaches bowl eligibility. And then Jacksonville State, Troy, and Southern Miss already had it, but Southern Miss took a really bad loss to Jacksonville State. So now Jacksonville State ranks above Southern Miss. Troy, still no idea how they're bowl eligible, but it happened. And then we got Louisiana Tech, who has a chance of being bowl eligible, but I'm definitely doubting. And then same with Mississippi State. Their one last game is against Ole Miss. So low-key, Mississippi State is screwed. Auburn and Louisiana, 1 game away from bowl ineligibility. And obviously with the bottom 3 who are already bowl ineligible. And then finally, we get the Sun Belt region, the Georgia-Florida Conference. Georgia won. I have now moved Miami above Georgia Tech. The main reason being, if you were to watch the Georgia Tech-Boston College game, Georgia Tech should not have struggled that much. They did not win by very much against what was a 1-9 team. Georgia Tech should not be struggling that much against Boston College. So that is why, even though they technically won the game, they got punished in my rankings. So now, they're sitting below Miami, despite having the technically better record. So now we have Georgia number 1, Miami number 2, Georgia Tech 3, USF still sitting at number 4, but I have now passed Florida State, has now passed Kennesaw State. The reason being is because Kennesaw State took a bad loss this week, and so now Florida State now looking to likely get that 6th win. And then the Florida Gators, to me, the best bowl ineligible team. And then we got UCF, Southern Miss, UCF, Georgia Southern, FIU, FAU, and the really terrible Georgia State. And so now, let's take a look at the promotion and relegation league to see what has changed. To be honest, in the first two, the Big Ten and SEC, not much. Those that are planning on dropping and those that are planning on rising are still the same. But we take a look at the Big 12 drops. Kansas State is no longer there. It is now replaced by Baylor, as I think Baylor is not having a strong season, so that I think they'll likely to drop to the ACC. 2 changes to the Pac-12 region. We now got Jacksonville State likely to rise to the ACC, and Virginia Tech to likely drop to the American. And then speaking of the American, new team likely to drop is Miami University. I think Wisconsin was there before, and now I think they're just barely going to scrape by and stay in the American, and Miami University is in danger of falling to the Sun Belt. And speaking of the Sun Belt, San Jose State now looking to fall out of the Sun Belt to the Mountain West, saving, I believe it was NIU. And so now Colorado State and Bowling Green still down there, but now San Jose State is likely to fall as well. And then taking a look at the Mountain West, we got to change to the rises and the falls. I think Florida State replaces Mississippi State as now likely to rise to the Sun Belt. And we now have App State joining the bottom 3, likely to drop to the MAC. And then to rise out of the MAC, we got Utah State in here. I put Utah State above Troy, because I don't think Troy is that good. Again, I'm surprised they have 6 wins. And then looking at Conference USA, that 3rd spot, constantly carouseling around, it's back to FIU. And in the bottom spot, I believe it's the same, but just in case it's not, it's UTEP, Georgia State, and Middle Tennessee. And looking at the independents and the FCS teams likely to rise, they're all the same. Just a couple of things moving around. I put Kennesaw above Southern Miss now, but they're both still likely to rise to Conference USA, Missouri State and Delaware. Missouri State's still the better of the 2. And the 3 FCS undefeated teams remain undefeated. So that's going to be it for this week's discussion. Again, sorry for it being a day late, but hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you all next week.